Welcome to another entry in My Philippine Diary. Today's video, My Life Story. I graduated from Marymount College. That was a strange story in itself. I was talking to a high school buddy of mine, and it was the last few weeks of high school. And he said he had to go to his college, Marymount, and see a counselor. He said, "You should come with me for the ride." And so I went with him. And during the ride, he goes, "This is a really great school. You should go to Marymount." He says it's small, classes are small, and I know you'll enjoy that because you don't like crowds. He was right. I don't like a crowded situation. I don't like crowds. I had been accepted to and registered at California State University of Long Beach. I was signed up and ready to go. But I went down with my friend to Marymount, and eventually I talked to a counselor, and next thing you know, there I am. Marymount has a world-renowned foreign student exchange program. Kids come from all over the world to go to that school and study English here. Rich kids, just kids from everywhere. And so the first thing I noticed was I met a lot of foreigners, passport holders, travelers, people that were just different than me culturally, and that was okay. I like that. I like different. I took a job in the ESL department, English as a second language, as a teacher's aide to help me with my finances. That last minute switch, I didn't have everything paid for, so I had to work an extra job to do that. By then I was already working a job at Sears, the retail establishment, and then I found a few more hours as a teacher's aide in the ESL department. What we did was we helped the kids with their conversational English and helped them prepare for their TOEFL, TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. That test is now morphed into the TEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language. Anyway, during that process, I befriended a lot of these people, a lot of these students. I met some friends who are friends to this day. I formed some friendships that were life-changing for me as well as them. Incredible friendships. When I left with a degree in business management, emphasis in accounting, and a strong knowledge of teaching ESL, English as a second language. My employment history, I spent about 6 years working part-time for Sears. That was high school and some college. And then, of course, when I got to college, I took the other job as a teacher's aide. And so I worked the two jobs and studied very hard. It kept me very busy. After graduation, I got a job in the banking industry. I stayed there for 10 years. That was a great job. I learned a lot. And then one day I saw it, a computer. The bank had ordered and received its first computers. It was love at first sight. I love that thing. I befriended the company computer guru. He mentored me. He told me to take lots of classes. He told me to get lots of certifications. And when the time came, he encouraged me to go out and start my own small business doing computer support. He told me I could make a good living. And so I did exactly that. I went out and started my own company. Right about that time, I met this young lady, a Mexican-American, and she told me that we should go visit her mom. Her mom lives in Tijuana, Mexico. Her mom and her brothers live there. And we were in Los Angeles. And a drive from Los Angeles would take 3 hours to get all the way to San Diego. And then the city of San Diego butts up against the border of Tijuana, Mexico. So in 3 hours, we could go from Los Angeles to Mexico. And we did. We went, I met her mom, I met her brother, I met some friends of hers. We went to the beach. I had a great time. Such a great time that a couple of weeks later, we went back and we did it again. And a couple of weeks later, we did it again and again and again. In that first year, I probably did it 10, 12 times. So eventually, after leaving the banking industry, I formed my own company, and I decided I think I'll move to Mexico. And so I did. I moved into Mexico. I got an apartment that was so close to the border that I could drive across the border back to the U.S., do a computer job, and then after finishing that job, come back home to Mexico. It turns out tens of thousands of people were doing that from Mexico, going from Mexico to the U.S. to either go to school or go to work. And then they would go back that same evening. And conversely speaking, thousands of Americans were going from the U.S. to Mexico to work. And then they would come back that same evening. So it turned out that there was quite a bit of traffic going back and forth between the borders. Initially, I started out in my computer business as tech support and all kind of computer-related stuff. And that went well for about 4 years. But I noticed I was getting more and more requests to teach English. And then finally a school offered me a job, and it was so lucrative that I took that job and I stopped doing the tech support work. Or I slowed down immensely. I did that for a few years. And eventually, I opened my own school. It was computers, accounting, and computer tech. It's kind of like a trade tech school. That went along pretty well for a while, and then it started to slow down. And right about the time that it started to slow down, I got a call from my sister. She told me that my dad was gravely ill. And so I shut down what I was doing in Mexico and I went back home to the U.S. to see my dad. It turns out he had a broken arm, and maybe after 8 months that arm did not heal. It hadn't healed when it should have healed in 2 or 3 months. Eventually it healed after 8 or 9 months, and then he had problems with his eyes. He went blind, and he got a small surgery, and it took care of that, and he could see again. But shortly after that, the doctor found out that he had prostate cancer, and it was ravaging his body. And that is what caused his systems to shut down, his body to fight against itself. He was terminally ill. I stayed with my dad for that time. I took care of him as best I could. And eventually, after about a year, he died. What can I say? He died. He was a great dad. He taught me a lot. I wanted for nothing. He was a very strong, positive role model, and I'm glad that I had him in my life. I mourned for a while, and then I went back to work, back to my computer business. I started up again, tech support, network administration, database administration, and then I started to develop a specialty, call centers, setting them up, hiring the people, training, and then turning the operation over to the owner. One day, about 2005, a friend of mine called from Mexico, and he said his daughter was having a quinceañera. That is a coming of age party for a young girl. When she is 15, she goes from young girl to womanhood. That's celebrated by all the family, fathers, sisters, cousins, all coming together and throwing a really huge party. And so my friend asked if I would come down and attend the party, and I said, sure. I invited a couple of friends of mine, both Americans, and I said, let's go to this party in Mexico. We'll have a great time, I promise. So we loaded up and we drove down to the party. The friend had us over to his house and we stayed at his house. We went to the party. It was great. Beautiful scenery, flowers, beautiful women, incredible food. It was just a beautiful event. We stayed with that friend that night, and then in the morning we got up and we drove to Tecate, Mexico, Tecate, where the beer is made. In fact, they have a factory there, and we took a tour of the factory. Later on, we went to disco dancing, and we went out and ate a few times, and we met lots of people on the street, and we talked to lots of people. And my friends had a really good time. We got a hotel room. We stayed there, and the next morning we got up, and we were having breakfast, a great breakfast. The food was incredible. We had a beer, and one of my friends said, you know, I spent a short time living in the Philippines. We should go there. You know, that's where I met my wife, my ex-wife at. And so we talked about it then. We talked about it a few days later. We talked about it a few more days later. And eventually we all decided that we would go to the Philippines. And so we set a date. We bought tickets and off we went. December 2007, we went to the Philippines. It was incredible. My friend knew his way around. The beaches were incredible. The food was incredible. Things were reasonably priced. The people were nice. It was just an all-out good time. I even met a really nice girl that year. We stayed 2 weeks, and then we returned home to our lives. I kept in contact with that young lady that I met. We Skyped, we emailed, we Facebooked, we did all the electronic communications, and we did that pretty much every day. In fact, I returned back to the Philippines 4 times in the next 5 years. Every time I went back, I would meet with this young lady, and we would spend as much time together as possible. In about 2013, eventually I married this young lady. And then I would go back home every year and continue to work. Then the onset of arthritis hit me. It was my ankles, it was my fingers, it was my wrists. So much so that I had surgery. A while after that, I ended up retiring. And so when I retired, I said, hey, I'd like to go live in the Philippines. And so that's the road that led me back here to the Philippines. I'm now here. I live here. I've retired here. I married the young lady that I told you about, and we now have a daughter. Thank you for watching. That's another video entry into my Philippine diary. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Bye.